Indonesia stepped forward in 2009 as the first developing country to announce voluntary emission reduction. So far, the forces of business as usual have resisted the change. The fires that burned more than 2 million hectares in late 2015 is the country's most devastating setback to date. President Joko Widodo is pushing new policies and institutional arrangements in response to the development, including the establishment of a new Peatland Restoration Agency. Civil society has been frustrated with the slow pace of policy implementation. The Constitutional Court decision opening the door to recognition of indigenous territories within the forest estate is argued to come too late. What is the way forward? Is there any potential for transformational change in land use systems? How can different stakeholders come together? How can policy approaches and financing streams help to achieve reductions in emissions from deforestation in Indonesia?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session, parallel session 1B, with the topic, Indonesia, can business as usual deforestation be confronted and reversed? My name is Rizal Kusumatmaja, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. Minister Setra of Ethiopia this morning started his answer by saying it's important to look at history if you want to look at the problem. So I would like to talk a little bit to set the stage about the history of REDD debate in Indonesia. It started in 2007 when REDD was first discussed publicly in Bali. And then at that time, the framing is around private sector initiatives, because you have new REDD project developers coming to Indonesia in Aceh, in Kalimantan, in Papua. And immediately following that framing of the debate, there's a debate that no, not only private sector should benefit from this, we have to have safeguards. So we have a debate on social and environmental safeguards centered around mostly on rights, the indigenous people's rights, local community rights, and how REDD will make sure that it doesn't result like any other development project when those rights are ignored. Then the debate continues. The next debate was about, actually, REDD is probably best implemented at the supranational level by the provincial government. So we discuss about a jurisdictional nested approach, where you have a project level, subnational level, and national level. Then the latest topic in the debate is relating REDD to the value chain, to the commitments of companies in having zero deforestation supply chain. So as you can see, 10 years from Bali, almost 10 years from Bali, we are very good in talking about it. We're very good in finding all different aspects of it. But last year, in 2015, there is a sad reminder that despite the number of forums like this, debates and commitments, we have one of the worst forest fires we have had in Indonesia. And forest fires are the result of failure in reducing emission through deforestation and forest degradation. So I think I'd like to take this opportunity for us to reflect back to what we've been discussing in the past almost 10 years. And the central question to this session is, how can we do better? How come government, private sector, and CSO can do better? And how can the international community can also better design their program to help? Or to put it more simply, how can we translate these commitments through real actions on the ground? So this is a very deep question, And we are fortunate this afternoon to have a distinguished set of panelists who are able to help us discuss these questions based on their real experience. First, I would like to invite here Pak Nazir Foead, who leads the newly formed Peat Restoration Agency in Indonesia. He has a very challenging task, a real task, of restoring 2 million hectares of peatlands in the next 5 years. Welcome, Pak Nazir. Round of applause. Next, we have Ibu Nur Masripatin, who is responsible for the climate change agenda in the Ministry of Environment and Forests. People translate the Ministry to Environment and Forestry, but I like to use Environment and Forest. And we have a distinguished presence of Governor Alex Nurdin. Governor Nurdin has to deal with this in real concrete ways every day in province of South Sumatra, hence has taken leadership in tackling this issue. Welcome, Governor. So you see the pattern that we have male and female and male. And so the next one will be Ibu Mina Setra from AMAN, the Indonesian Indigenous Peoples Alliance, who has been tirelessly advocating for the rights of Masyarakat Hukum Adat, or the indigenous peoples over their forest land. Thank you. Welcome. And lastly, we have Tony Wenas, who leads one of the biggest pulp and paper companies, the Apple Group in Indonesia, who's been trying to implement this underground too. Welcome, Tony. So before I start the discussion, I would like to talk about the rules of the games. So we have a very limited time, as you know. So I will ask each panelist an opening question, and each of you will have 4 minutes to answer, and then we will be reminded if you go over. And then I would like to ask for your permission to cut if your time is over. So I apologize in advance. And after that, we have a second round, and then after that, we open it to the audience. So let's start. So, Pak Nazir, I'm actually going to ask you, sit down, the same questions that Francis asked you about how there's been changes in the government institution, Redd Agency to Peat Restoration Agencies, and how throughout these changes, you actually are very optimistic about the commitments of government in this issue. So I want to go a bit deeper. You are very optimistic. You said that President Joko Widodo has a set of daring decisions. But how do you see the challenges in implementing decisions? Because you want to protect peatlands and forests, but at the same time, you have to have 12.7 million hectares as a land reform, and you have a 7% economic growth target. Panelists, please.
Thank you, Pak Rezal. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. These are all Indonesia friends talking about Indonesia. Thank you to be here. The room is almost full. Yes, carry on what I've mentioned in the previous panel, that we see the policy of REDD Plus, or reducing the greenhouse gas emission through on the land use sector, from the moratorium policy in the previous government, and then carry on even putting a higher level, let's call it, of moratorium policy in this government by the president himself directly, have been, I think, to some degree shocking to some of my friends in private sector perhaps, and even to NGOs. And after the instruction from the president is carried out quite responsively by the ministry at the Jakarta level. Of course, we need to see the activities, the implementations on the provincial and district level. But so far, I see the push have been quite good. I take my examples on the Peatland Agency. When the President Jokowi put out the policy to extend the moratorium of peatland on all peatland, all intact peatland which have not been opened, regardless of the license status, in 23 October 2015. So that is like a month before Paris COP. And what the President did is really responding to the peat fires, the fires happening that affecting millions, tens of millions of Indonesians. I think when the President did it, it's not because of Paris. Yeah, it's really that he sees this is wanted to be done. We have to put it over in our bag and move forward with a very different paradigm. That is the 23 October. 6 January, he signed a decree, set up the agency with a very clear task, and then putting forward moratorium policy on palm oil, and in 1 month, a bit more than 1 month, the Ministry of Forestry exercised that and coming up to a situation where almost 1 million hectares of palm oil plantation expansion license were stopped. The agency, my agency, mapped 4.5 million hectares of peatland, in intact peatland, in cultivation area, not in protected area. So cultivation area means that will one day convert it for something. Yeah. We also look at that and put it in the moratorium phase. And so far, the response from the other ministries in the national government is very supportive. So talking openly to all of you, we see this commitment coming from the President, adopted by the cabinet, many ministries, and in several visits that I made to South Sumatra, West Kalimantan, and many provinces, including Papua, all the governors see the importance of this value and willing to work very hard with the national government to implement the policy from the President.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Nazir. I would like to turn to Ibu Nur now. Again, going back to history. So Ibu Nur is probably one of the most, if not the most knowledgeable person in this room about REDD+. She's been involved in the negotiation even before Bali. And then she joined the REDD+ agency, and now she's in charge of the climate change agenda at the Ministry of Environment and Forests. So from your, this 10-year period of talking about this, how do you see the role of international negotiations, international agreements, probably including the LOI with Norway, actually help what you're trying to do in government?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Rizal. Good afternoon, colleague. It has been a long history for REDD+ in Indonesia, also a long history for my life with REDD+. For 10 years, negotiation processes under UNFCCC have provided sufficient guidance for REDD countries to implement result-based payment REDD+ activities. And the beauty of REDD+ that the guidance for REDD+ implementation allow REDD countries to start the REDD activities with their own capacity, national circumstances, with the phase-based approach. Countries could select where a phase they could start from. They could start from phase 1, phase 2, or even phase 3 if we are ready to start with. And during that time also, many countries, including Indonesia, also engaged with bilateral and multilateral cooperation. In the case of Indonesia, through multilateral and bilateral cooperation has helped us. So, for example, in policy reform, one map policy is one example. Also, what has been mentioned by Pak Nazir, moratorium of the license, new license in the natural forest, institutional strengthening both at the national, provincial level, even at the district level. In terms of technical methodological aspects, through international cooperation, including the bilateral cooperation with Norway. The cooperation has helped us to strengthen our existing effort in preparing our REDD+ architecture, including MRV National Forest Monitoring System, establishment of forest reference level, also developing safeguard information system. There have been a number of underground processes that we could learning by doing with that. Through bilateral cooperation with Norway, for example, we have 11 province and piloting, and then during the transition, now we are in transition after the integration of REDD+ agency to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Looking at what we experienced in last year with forest fire, we focused on the 5 provinces that prone to forest fire, from South Sumatra, Jambi, Riau, Central Kalimantan, and West Kalimantan, and then exercise with indigenous people activities, social forestry in West Sumatra. I think through the process at the international level and national level, we see that it is important to ensure the coherence between the two processes, so that what we found, the process at the national level helping the negotiation process and vice versa.
Thank you. Thank you, Bunur. Governor Alex Nurdin, it's great to have you here, because this morning we take a poll, and then it says that this no deforestation commitment is best implemented at the provincial level. And then you have taken a leadership role in South Sumatra. There's a lot of problems, including the fires, but you've managed to have everybody on board towards your sustainable landscape development plan, the green growth agenda. What are the challenges in making companies and CSO come together to implement this?
Very good afternoon for all of us. I came from South Sumatra, the hinterland of Sumatra, really on the ground, on the fields, not behind the decks. So, in my experience, whatever the program, whatever the method, whatever the planning, cannot be succeed if the people cannot be educated first. So, the first priority in our development in South Sumatra province is give the best education for the people with a free education for our child. And second, free medical care for every people in South Sumatra since 2002. So, but we cannot wait. Our people already educated all, but simultaneously we launching the program for this to restoration our forest, our peatland, and whatsoever. So first, please educate our people, and then we launching whatever the programs cannot be succeed if our people not educated. This is my experience since 20 years as the leader in the. So we make the action on the ground already, even before the REDD+. We already set up the initiative to make coordinations, to invite our all the stakeholders, from local government, of course, from peoples, from donors, from community, from our friends, from NGOs and others. So we now already have the consortium between maybe with the APP, JSL, IDH and others to work together to solve the problems. And we have to have the strong decisions, strong leader to make it happen, because the challenge in the village, in regency, in province is very, very hard. So believe me, first make the people more in more prosperity, in better prosperity for the people, better education, better healthcare, and then we're launching the program for this.
Thank you, Governor. Ibu Mina, this morning also we have a presentation from AMAN, I guess, discussion from AMAN, and I think if you look at the text, there's a lot of declarations supporting indigenous peoples, but if you look at the facts on the ground, it's probably the situation have not changed that much. So having been working on this issue for a while, what is the most frustrating aspect of fighting for the rights of the indigenous peoples in Indonesia?
Thank you. Well, actually, you said that already. The most frustrating aspect is that what is it with all this awareness that actually the problem is rights? This morning, I remember, the poll on one of the polls was the highest number was about rights. So actually, mostly everybody in the room realized that rights is the first thing we have to deal with before we work on other things. But why? When everybody realized that, it's not had been done. Well, we do have some progress. Like in 2007, when we started, when indigenous people start massively joining the COP process, we look at the document. There was no single words on indigenous peoples, and now 2016, we already have some part of the Paris Agreement saying about indigenous peoples, the UN declarations, also free prior informed consent. And in national level, we do have some progress. We have constitutional court ruling on indigenous people, on customary forests. We have environmental law that recognize indigenous people's traditional knowledge on managing environment. So we do have some laws and regulations actually recognize indigenous people's rights. That's why it is frustrating why on the ground the situation is still like that. Forest fires still happen, conflict still occurs, land conflict mostly. People still criminalized because protecting their territories. So what is wrong? Actually, this is a question for all of us. Whether is it the, one thing that we aware that actually Indonesian governments realize what is the problem. In many of Indonesian governments document mention about the driver of deforestation, underlying cause of deforestation, even recognize the problem in the governance system of our situations. That there are some weaknesses, there are some capacity have to be built, there are programs have to be established, capacity building. So all of this, but we need more effort on how to change the paper into reality. Same as like Paris Agreement. Paper will be useless if it's only paper. But to change the situation on the ground, make it really real for people in the community, and also actually contribute for the changes in the country. That is actually the call that we need. There is progress have to be done, ensuring the rights of indigenous peoples and so they can contribute in protecting forests and protecting the territories. I think that's the first thing we have to do before everything else.
Okay, protecting rights. Thank you, Mina. You mentioned that paper is not enough. So it's lucky that we have Pak Tony Bernas, whose business is making papers now.
Go further down.
So, Pak Tony, April make no deforestation commitment, and we also know that April has a history also. So, and of course, it is going to be challenging to implement any deforestation commitment, just like what we hear from the government side, from the civil society organization side. So what do you think the biggest challenge in implementing that? And what kind of help do you need from other stakeholders? You need leadership from governors, probably, like Pa Alex, and work on the ground with the civil society organization. So what can you tell us from the point of view of a CEO of a big company?
Chief Entertainment Officer.
Please.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank everybody and for inviting me, for the organizer as well, in this very prominent event. So I'm very glad also I can sit together with all these fabulous panelists. Talking about deforestation, actually, talking about sustainability, it's a journey for us. It didn't happen just like overnight like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a journey where we have processed, we have learned our process, we have gone through the process, and we also always updating or renewed our processes. Until last year, we decided to declare the no deforestation throughout our supply chain. We also committed to 1-for-1 commitment, where for every hectare that we plant, we're going to conserve also 1 hectare. And there are some other commitments as well, including the FPIC, if you want to open a new area, and those other commitments as well. So if you ask about what is the main problem, the main problem is basically, one of the things I have to admit, that we are a big company with big operations, right? We have 5,500 people working at the mill, and throughout the plantation, probably around 20,000 people. So in order to implement this from top to down, I mean, it will take time. But I didn't mean that we started just last year. No, it has already been socialized before we declared it. So we have already prepared the structure in such a way so that when we announce it, it will have to go all the way until the executor level on the ground. But still, there is a challenge there. The other challenge is we have I think the other industry also have a very wide and large stakeholders. And we communicated with the stakeholders. I mean, all of the stakeholders, including the government, the local government, the civil society, as well as the international, national, and also at the local level. So we also have formed the Stakeholders Advisory Committee, consisted of several professionals, independent professionals in each areas, including NGOs as well. And also the other group is the Independent Peat Expert Working Group. So we consulted with all of them. You know, lots of consultation means a lot of voices, a lot of ideas. And the challenge is how to make the ideas become more and more focused so that it can be implemented. Because if it's too many ideas without we scrutinize that, I mean, without making it to become more implementable, it is quite difficult to implement that. So it has to be done in such a way so that all of the ideas being put in a kind of like pyramid size to be focused. And the other one, I think if you ask what kind of help do I need from the government, what we need help is that, first of all, about restoration, ecosystem restoration. If we're talking about ecosystem restoration, we talk about collaborative action between us and also the government, the stakeholders, I mean NGOs and the government as well. In my opinion, I think the government should be more in front of doing this. Okay, we have the idea, we have the resources, but the government can lead us as well. And the other one, I think, which is also important, is that about the taxation, because sustainability, restoration is not only owned by Ministry of Environment and Forestry or only by BRG. I mean, the Ministry of Finance also should own this. You know, we need incentive incentivize the industry so that they will do ecosystem restoration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Tony. Very interesting. So I'm entering the second round where I try to dig deeper if there is something that we're not quite satisfied with the first round of questions. So, Pak Nazir, I'm going back to the original question again now. I think more specifically, you said that you're very optimistic, that the President provides leadership, the ministries are aligned. But I think for a lot of us here, I think it's difficult to understand when you have 12.7 million hectare target for land redistribution, when you have a 7% growth target that is pushed by infrastructure development, that's got to hurt forests somehow. How do you align those different objectives? How do you see the opportunities are and the challenges are in doing this?
Yes, so I think we have to also see that the land redistributions, as well as in some cases the ecosystem restoration, peatland restoration, which will involve farmers, indigenous people, traditional communities, and so on, is part of the economic activities. So yes, there is a big chunks of conservation or restorations or preservations, nature's preservation, but at the same time also pushing it for livelihoods. So if that can be done at the massive scale in terms of the BRG, my Peatland agency, is 2.7 million hectares restoration target. So if half of that will be happening in cultivation area, let's say, half for conservation, it will be 1.3 million hectares. And if all of that will involve farmers, hundreds of thousands of farmers, indigenous people group will be involved and will be assisted from government. We also would like to see private sector take part on providing technical assistance or financial assistance. Then it becomes a new economic options. So one may say that, well, some forests, if it's all protected, then it will be less opportunity for development. But you could also see that if huge land for restorations and redistributions of degraded land for communities could happen, then it's not like offsetting, but it's a new economic development opportunities. Put aside the other one. And I mentioned before, like on palm oil issue, that the government is now pushing a lot on yield increment, pushing also on downstream industries. That also bring the economy up. And we hope the benefit, the advantage of this development will be go more directly to farmers. Yes, companies are needed, but I think everybody will agree that if the direct benefit go to more farmers and less companies, we'll see better distributions of benefits, including economic.
Thank you, Pak Nazir. Ibu Nur, this is related again to my earlier question to Pak Nazir, because Pak Nazir is looking at the peatlands, but you at the ministry have to look at the climate change agenda as a whole. And to achieve our reduction target, I think you have to look at similar things, economic activities as implementation of our NDC. How can the international community help you in finding a different path, like Pak Nazir suggested, at the broader agenda?
Yeah, Pak Rizal, I think before we talk about how international communities could help, it will be good also if I share what we are doing at the moment after Paris. Our INDC pledge was without breakdown to sectoral contribution, and now we feel that this is important for us to elaborate what is the contribution from each sector. And from in our case, The two biggest sectors that contribute to the national greenhouse gas emission is from land use sector, land use and land use change and forestry, and then the second is energy sector. So we are working on that simulation and relate them to the economic growth and the target of our government, etc., etc. And it's a really complex thing to do, and related to our topic of discussion today, where Indonesia will put REDD Plus in our NDC. We also work on that area. There are a number of aspects that international communities could help us. First, as I mentioned, that the REDD Plus have already sufficient guidance for result-based implementation, and so far it's very few in the world. And international community could help us in speeding up the result-based activities at least up to 2020, and then we start work how we will treat our REDD Plus in our NDC under Paris Agreement. So far, we see the opportunity under Article 5, although we recognize some parties have considered to move to Article 6. For Indonesia, we need to understand first how Article 6 will work under Paris Agreement and how it will work for REDD Plus. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mina. Back to Governor Alex Nurdin. I think you're the only person in the panelists who mentions education and health. So you are looking at the issue in a long-term basis. At the same time, there's a lot of short-term needs in terms of reducing deforestation. So what kind of help, again, from the international community so you can achieve the balance between needing to achieve the long-term objectives that will help you to deal with issues like deforestation, but at the same time, you also have something in front of you.
We are the host for the Asian Games 2018. So we have to give the confirmations, promise there is no fire this year and next year and next year. And there is no. I am his governor, because the CNN Singapore interviewed me during the forest fire last year. So I explains what happens and our effort to extinguish the fire, and our plan to make there is no fire next year. And this interview was what is ditayangkan is broadcast in Singapore many times. So when I was in Changi, the immigration man said that is his governor. So that is the true story. So we, our local governments, with our Bupati in 4 regency and our peoples, now is fight to make this not happen again. With our efforts, with the help from our friends, and also from the international institutions. The UK, Netherlands, and Norway will help us, especially for we call it karhutla, kebakaran hutan dan lahan. It's the fire forest. So I would like to thanks to all friends. We are already make the action on the grounds. We already make the consortium with all our friends, from the institution, from the NGOs, from the companies, from all the stakeholders. So we have the plans to keep our promise. No haze anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Back to Ibu Mina. So you were hoping to get the answer of the why from the panels, right? So have you heard the answer so far? And what do you think your response is to them?
Well, I think Indonesia need a magician. Somebody who can do magic, change the situation into better situation. And maybe President Jokowi is trying to be that magician right now. And with Ibu Nur, Pak Alex Nurdin, and everyone here trying to be the stick of the magic, trying to do this. I think what we expect that what for international community can do for on indigenous people's contact, please do not stop to keep monitoring our governments and companies operated in our land. We need that. We need pressure. Without pressure, we cannot move forward. Pressure will make us better, yeah. And that's the first. And second, I think we need to develop more samples, good examples, success stories. Maybe Pa Alex Nurdin can be one of the champion. We need more examples in different areas in Indonesia with different context, situation, and problems. Some may be on peatland, but maybe other examples also from area which is not peatland. How we going to tackle this problem? The things that we have to understand is that forest comes along with livelihood, culture, medicines, traditions. It's not standalone forest. Although if we have like reforestation agenda, although if we can bring back all the forest back, it's not necessarily means that indigenous peoples already got back everything that they wanted, because everything is not the same anymore. How do we return back all that the loss that they've been going through? If we start implementing the Paris Agreement, start counting loss and damage, for example, can all the loss and damage in indigenous territories be counted? Maybe not. But we need to start doing something on that. And again, first, start by ensuring the rights. With the rights, indigenous peoples can contribute more. If you protect, make sure that they are protected, they can contribute more in making these countries better situations.
Thank you, Ibu Mina. Thank you. Pak Tony, last question for you from me. You mentioned specific things that you need help from the government, that you think the government needs to take leadership. One is on incentives for ecosystem restoration. The other is on taxation. But people will ask, of course, a company will ask for those too, right? Less tax, more incentives. There's nothing unusual about it. So how do you envision, since people in this panel pretty much have the same platform of the understanding of the problem, how do you envision a dialogue, a multi-stakeholder dialogue, so that the policy recommendations is something that is very strong for government to follow up?
Okay. Again, let me say that this deforestation, landscape approach, this is beyond conservation itself. It's more, we're talking about landscape approach. So landscape approach means a collaboration among the stakeholders, among the companies, among the governments as well, at the central level, provincial level, to local level. So this need to collaborate more. So our aim is that to make a better ecosystem. My company, my shareholders previously have provided guidance that the operation of the company should be good for the community, good for the country, and good for the company. But they added another C there. Good for the community, which is more local, good for the country, more national, good for the climate, the third C being inserted. And also, therefore it can be good for the company. So it's a collaborative action that needs to be discussed thoroughly. I mean, of course, if we discuss it right now, do we have answer to that? Like Ibu Mina said, we need a magician to do that. Magician to do that. Well, we might want to have several magicians. We expect that the President Jokowi, with all his effort and try to do the good things like formation of the BRG, assigning the coordinating minister of politics, legal and security, take care of the fire suppression, and assigning the coordinating minister of economy for the fire preventions, and also merging the environmental and forestry ministry into one ministry. It's a very, very good start already, but it needs to be translated further in real action to be done by all of us together.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the panelists by giving them a round of applause for the first round. Before opening the floor to the audience, I would like to invite Ms. Liam Sien Chu from Bumi Tama Corporation to have a first intervention response, because we have heard from the pulp and paper industry, but we haven't heard from the palm oil industry. So please, Ibu Sien Chu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sien Chu. I'm from Bumi Tama, and I'm representing the palm oil sector. So whatever I'm saying is things that all of us has been doing. I also like to thank Pak Rizal for giving me this opportunity to speak, and also to Oslo Redd Exchange for organizing this convention. In Bumi Tama, we actually adopted no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation policy in the August of 2015. But prior to that, we actually did some extensive work in 2014, experimenting with the idea of, what do you mean by no deforestation? So we actually followed Wilmar's and Golden Agri's methodology of using what we call a HCS approach. We actually look at tree covers, and then where areas where the tree covers are dense, those are the areas that we do not open. With that kind of approach, we ended up with a plantation that looks like a mosaic. Patches of areas where we conserve, patches of area where we open for plantation. And when you talk to the operational people, they said, "Oh, this doesn't look like a plantation anymore. You cannot manage on this kind of areas." So we have to actually work together with operations, work together with the community as well, because a community is very, very important. They are the one who help us determine how successful the conservation is going to be, how successful, what we're going to do with the set-aside land that we are not going to plant. So like the panelists have shared, it is a big task. We are looking at it as a landscape basis, which means that we have to collaborate with many, many people, not only ourselves, with the community, with the government. How do we ensure that the conservation or the set-aside that we have will remain as a set-aside and will not be used by somebody else for other economic purposes. And we also have to go back to the community to design, while we talk about conserving the area, we also have to be mindful that the community have to make a living. They have to live as well. And how do we help them to ensure that they can still, instead of logging in the area that we want to conserve, how do we create an alternative livelihood program for them? So it's a lot of meeting up with the community, doing the participatory work, and then looking at the culture, looking at their history, and see what are the things that they really like to do. and design an economic empowerment program for the community. I think nothing worse than giving the community the fish and not teaching them how to fish, because eventually the community must be independent. That's the key. Besides that, we are also looking at other areas. Whatever that we do, there must be substantial proof that whatever that we do is to the good of everything. Not only to the good of the people, good for the climate, good for the government, because government also need to live. They also need revenue. We have to be take cognizance of this, and therefore, in everything that is done, everything must be balanced, and that's the approach that we have taken in Bumi Tama. And I really think that in the palm oil industry, although many things has been said about the palm oil industry, the major players have all made the commitment of no deforestation, no peat planting. And we feel that we have reached a tipping point where changes will come. Yes, there are smallholders still, that doesn't embrace that policy. But the big players are working with them and changing their mindset, and educating them, helping them with productivity initiative, and reminding them, that this peat is a very, very sensitive ecological system and therefore needs to be preserved. So all this will take a little bit of time, but the efforts and the activities are being carried out. I think, in the years to come, we'll see a big change for this particular industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chancellor. With this, I would like to open the floor to questions. We have about a little under 40 minutes. If I can have a show of hands, I'll take 3 people. Tim, Pak Fitrian, and Pak Agus. I would like Tim to first come up. This is, we have to speak to the panelists to ask questions, but also you have to look at the camera at the same time. It's an impossible thing to do, but you should try.
Thank you. My name is Timothy Jessup. I'm with the Global Green Growth Institute in Indonesia. Thanks for the opportunity. My question is for Pak Nazir, Ibu Nur, and Pak Tony, one or all. And it's about incentives for restoration, which was discussed earlier. So as you know, the chief mechanism or instrument now in Indonesia for managing restoration in forest areas, including peatlands, is the ecosystem restoration concession, which is a license modeled on the old logging concession. And one of the problems, well, first let me say one of the advantages. The big advantages is that restoring ecosystems will provide carbon sequestration, or at least avoided emissions, other ecosystem services, benefits to local communities, and eventually restoring a productive forest ecosystem, possibly even for logging or other non-timber forest uses. One of the big barriers is that a concessionaire has to pay upfront a licensing fee. So to me, this is backwards, right? It's like the opposite of market failure. Okay. You're saying a private investor has to come in, pay a lot of money to provide public goods and services. So my question is it possible that this model could be turned around, that you might have an auction in which the government, possibly using climate finance, would pay companies to come in and restore ecosystems?
Thank you,
rather
Tim.
than charging them for the privilege.
Thank you, Tim. Let's have the answer first, Pak Nazir.
What I can say that also I agree that the payment upfront is a discouragement instead of giving incentive. So that I think the government fully realized they need to be changed. And I think there's current discussions on how to change it, but whether it will go to the other extreme to pay the companies, I think is still a big question, Tim.
So thank you, Pak Nazir. But Pak Nazir is not issuing license, so we have to ask Ibu Nur's ministry who actually issues license and asks people to pay. So please, Ibu Nur.
Thank you, Pak Rizal and Pak Tim. As long as this is related to forestry, existing rule will continue to be applied till the new regulation will be released. But in the context of climate change, now the government is working on preparing financial or funding instrument and funding institution for climate. And with that, we open opportunity, a number of mechanisms that we could explore, both for international mechanism and also domestic mechanism, as we will have commitment under NDC. So there is possibility also to develop a domestic market mechanism in the future. So we are working on that, but Tim, if you have input for us, will be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Nur. Pak Alex, would you like to add?
Not for me.
Okay, but if you like to say something?
Yes, about the funding.
Yeah.
I would like to ask, to appeal that the funding for restoration or whatsoever, not only at the national level, but also in the provincial levels, because we are in the field. We need sometimes we need some funds. We need it as soon as possible, because if, like our experience last year, if the fire almost in 100,000 hectares, because the once peatlands fired, nobody can stop this until the peatlands become wet again because the rains. Our experience last year again, there is 7 countries help us. 7 countries help us since the aircraft for water bombing. 19 aircraft. We bombing the fire with the water. Maybe almost 1 million water and hundreds sorties of the helicopter, the fixed wing, but the fire still underground. And thanks God, the rain's coming and the fire gone. So, Pak, from BRG, Pak Nazir, we need funds for this. Our in provincial level, because we need funds as soon as possible in these emergency situations. So once again, I am the man on the ground, not looking from the top, but we are on the ground. So we are responsible for this, representing the 3 provincial. 3 in Sumatra and 3 in Kalimantan. So please, we make the change of the structure of the finance part. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibu Mina, do you have a response to this issue?
Yes, incentive for companies to do restoration. Wow. That's, I think, unbelievable request. I tell you, there's community in East Kalimantan, Lusan community, indigenous communities. The total area of Lusan communities is 59,000 hectares, original. But then come conservation, come mining, come oil palm plantations, HGU, concessions areas. And now the areas for the Lusan community is only 409 hectares. There is no incentive for them. there's not even any support for them to at least getting back their livelihood. They have 59 hunting areas before. Now it's only 7. And companies who get all benefits so far, and then they also involve in the destroying the ecosystem, and contribute more to climate change. Now they're asking for incentive to support them to do restorations. Doesn't make sense for me. Sorry, Tim.
Thank you. Good thing we have more time because I think the debate is getting livelier now. So,
Sure.
Pak Tony, why should you get incentive, Pak Tony? do you wanna answer or?
I'm not me.
No, not you.
personally,
Okay.
Like my company, but there are some players who wants to do the ecosystem restoration. They don't have any previous business in Indonesia. They just want to do ecosystem restoration. How do we treat them? Incentive can be a financial incentive, can also be other incentive, right? Incentive to loosen, kind like to recruit people, any kind of incentive that we need to discuss. So there may be some other companies, a new company, a new player wants to invest in ecosystem restoration. I think we need to support, and like BKPM is inviting foreign investors to Indonesia with tax allowance, tax incentive and others. I think we need to facilitate these companies to ease them, come invest in ecosystem restoration. While for taxation, I think, for example, like the land and building tax, because land and building tax is for land and building. And I believe the ecosystem restoration holders are now being imposed land and building tax for them. They're not benefiting anything yet, but they have already been taxed. If the government would like to tax it, postpone the tax payment until they make money, then it will be taxed at that time. Something like that. So there may be, or we should find the best mechanism in doing that. The bottom line is that how more players can come in for ecosystem restoration.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pak Tony. Pak Agus, your question? Or Pak Fitrian first? Yeah. Please state your full name and affiliation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Fitrian Aldiansyah. I'm the Country Director of IDH Sustainable Trade Initiative. One thing that was very intriguing in the morning sessions in which Mas Nazir, my beloved friend, said about the current government policy in which it's no further expansion of palm oil, moratoriums, so to speak. But we do realize that perhaps big concessions can be monitored in terms of this kind of moratorium. But we know that 50% or approximately like that of palm oil are operated or managed by smallholders. And then I think millions hectares of smallholders are due for replanting within 1 to 5 or 6 years down the road. If they are not getting any more support, again, it's about incentives, but also many other things, to be able to produce productively, like you just mentioned, in their own land. I think there's a huge challenge and risk for them to expand. So in addition to your response perhaps, and also Ibu Nur, I think Pak Gubernur in South Sumatra has worked together with the CPO fund, Pak Bayu Krisnamurti, to introduce this type of fund for smallholder replanting, so they would be able to get some support in which they can still operate in their own areas without having to have further expansions. And perhaps Ibu Juju also can respond to that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Incentive for smallholders. Pak Nazir, please.
Yes, so no new expansion with soon 1.6 million hectares of already existing licenses but not operation yet will be stopped. Focusing on the yield increment would mean replanting for existing plantations. So, of course, we like to keep supporting what Pak Bayu and the CPO fund mechanisms to work on. That's one thing. But I like to also put out like challenges, a real action, what companies can do, and what government, at least in my agency, is thinking of. One thing about rights, we see the fires happening, we see degraded land not being used optimally or only use 23% efforts put in because there is no certainty of the ownership. So if those kind of land can be reclaimed, of course in this case government, and giving it to communities living in that area, giving a certainty of tenurials, our assumption is that if that land is owned by a community group fully recognized by the state, legally and so on, then the responsibility to take care of the land will be at maximum. It's, I think, very human, yeah? So the case is now only how to provide technical assistance or financial assistance instruments to support this community group to manage that land. So the government is trying to map that land and need, of course, to work with the CSO, AMAN in this case, for example, on who really have the legitimate access to that land. So these are the group will give it the rights. But I like to also put out the challenge that when the government try to inventory that kind of land, it may not be only the degraded land which have no certain ownership. It may be also in a company's concession, but having conflicts all the time. 3% of company A are not planted because of conflicts. 25% in company B are not being planted because of conflicts. So the question, would you willing or would you rather be keep fighting and that land being not used, or just let it go? Give it 35%, 25% to community which is living around that concessions, and they get the rights and work productively, also have a business relationship with the company. So that's one. It means company, how much they are looking on the concession now and be legowo.
It's really hard to translate.
Voluntarily agree that, okay, I have enough. Take 30% out of my concession, give it to this community group. That's one thing the government is looking at. The Ministry of Agraria fully support that. Of course, if the governor and the Bupati also support it, but we need also your support. Second, the challenge that when the Peat agency put this mapping on which area need to be protected because it's the dome, the Peat dome, and then the depth path and the how deep the pit is and so on. And it turned out to be also on concession land. So the Ministry of Environment and Forestry issued already regulation last year, December, requesting companies to adjust and modify their business plan, including the zonation. So company A have perhaps 10-15% of their concessions mapped under tanaman pokok, mapped under the productive zones that plant timber species are now categorized. That's supposed to be, that was wrong. That was the wrong decision made because it's important peat dome need to be protected. Mm-hmm. Now, how much also willingness the company to rezone that area, that 15% area now into a protection zone. That is very real. And government will be looking for that option. So we'll be, first, of course, put out the maps, talking with companies, but also we'll be very pleased if there's a new early adopters that respond positively. Yes, we can do it in my concession because we see the values of this and this and this. So the challenge back to also you, both companies and also donor agency may have some role to play. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that real action challenge. Ibu Nur, if you have anything to add on this issue?
Yeah, I just want to address the issue on right. I think talking about right, this is a very complex issue in our country. If we wait till we settle the right issue, I think we will never be able to improve our management of our natural resources, in this case forest. I think we could work parallelly. Ibu Mina knows very well that one of the Director General under the Ministry of Environment and Forestry now working very closely with AMAN to find the best way for resolving the right issue in our country, especially related to forest land. And I don't believe magic, Bu Mina. I believe gradual improvement. This is important for us when dealing with complex issue of land tenure in our country. And I think this should be recognized also by our international partner. That's what.
Before I go to Ibu Sianchu, is there anything you would like to add, Governor? Yeah.
We believe magic, Bu. But a little.
It's the title.
During the fire last year, we used 100 pawang hujan. What is call it? Someone can ask for rain, but it's not succeed. Maybe we have to import from the Kalimantan. But that's our real program, incentive for the smallholders, for the farmers. We already start this with Bayu and our friends, give some funds for the farmer to replanting his plantations, almost 5,000 hectares, involving the 3,000 farmers. Now it's on progress. So, and we'll be wider these programs to the whole kabupaten, to the whole regency. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add a bit on. I think one of the challenge that I want to support Bang Nazir when talking about how to give back the land to indigenous communities. Actually, a few years ago, we had that idea how to to encourage companies to do that, because actually many companies have the big concessions, big land banking, and some of them actually they're not planting anymore. Not yet plant. It's still forest. Even April, APP. I know you still have land banking quite a lot. Yeah, yeah. So our challenge is this is the things. The company who involved in forest fires and all this environmental crime, if I may say, there's no punishment, or they can just get away and then trying to do a new commitment, make a declarations. I think the best punishment for them now is release that land back to the community, all their land banking. They're not going to plant it anyway. Yeah. Once we try to offer this, but they said, well, if we do that, we have to go back to the government, because government that gave us the concession, they are the one who can do that. So now Pak Nazir also said, okay, government agree, they want to do this. Now the challenge is to the company.
Okay, so give me the name of the company.
Okay, let's identify later. So I think that's one of the possible things that we can do, because the community who really lost their territory, they need this land back. And they can contribute. You can then work in partnership, or you can build something together with them. And just one thing about this, especially on oil palm plantation. I think the big problems with oil palm plantation is they don't have responsibility to the farmer, also smallholder. Whenever something happen, like the price down, especially I went back to West Kalimantan where I belong. Yeah, I heard even from my own community, there are threat with hunger now because the oil palm price is really dropped, and at the same time, rubber plantation, rubber also dropped. No, the kids stop going to school because the parents cannot pay the school fee anymore. Where is the company? They're not responsible for this. They just leave the people whose land already gone. They cannot even plant rice anymore because there's no land to plant rice. Everything have to depend on the market. Where is the responsibility of companies in this context when the market down? That's maybe questions that we have to answer.
Thank you, Ibu Mina. Pak Tony, first maybe you want to respond to Pak Nazir related to Ibu Mina.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. I think we support BRG's point of view on this. But we need to go very thorough analysis on that. I mean, yes, there may be some areas that can be returned, if you want to use the term return, to the people. To the indigenous people, we need to also define whether they are pure indigenous or somebody else's are behind the indigenous or somebody else's are behind the community that came later. So we need to have a very thorough analysis on that. We'll be working closely. Our company will be working closely with BRG and also the Ministry of Environment and Forestry on those issues. Yes, to some extent, of course, we are being given license, concession by the Ministry of Forestry in the past, and Ministry of Environment and Forestry now. So we need to, if that's going to happen, we need to have kind of like consent from them. But again, we need to have a very thorough analysis on that.
Wow, you mean you agree to return back the land?
We need to have a thorough analysis.
You almost make a statement.
I made it already.
It is
a thorough analysis.
This discussion
who knows,
is
behind those people are basically Chukongs funding something, right? So you just are gonna change the hat from company A to Chukong B.
Yeah. This discussion is being streamed live, so all the statements are being watched. So just last comment probably from Ibu Sianchu, just to respond specifically to this idea. Can you grab the mic? Yeah.
Very quickly, I think all the views put up by the panelists are valid. Yeah, but we sometimes need to balance everything that we do again. On the smallholders, we have been working with smallholders for like 20,000 hectares of area in West Kalimantan. And we have been helping them to increase their productivity. So it's not true that the company don't reach out to the smallholders. They do reach out to the smallholders. And I know for a fact that we are not the only one. Bumi Tama is not the only company that's doing it. There are other companies that's doing it. What we did was we actually helped them to improve their infrastructure. They didn't have the money and they don't have the heavy equipment to create roads that makes harvesting easier. And that's where they lose their crop. And it's just a matter of, creating those roads for them so that they can harvest, they can reach the fruits better. And by doing that also, allows them to do a little bit of a basic fertilizing, and immediately the productivity went up. When we went and worked with them, we were of the same idea that we need to replant almost immediately because we think maybe the seeds are no good, the yield, the trees are already 18 years old, and therefore, the trees have problem. My R&D team went in, they did a study. They said, no, nothing wrong with the seeds. The seeds are good. The trees are good. The only thing is that they lack access and they lack a little bit of a basic fertilizer. And that was arranged, and the productivity went up. And then we sat down with the community, and we told them, no, you can still survive on these plants for a few more years. So if they do that, what we can do is, if we form them into a loose cooperative, we probably could, encourage them to do selective replanting, not at one go, selectively do a replanting until all the area of that 20,000 hectares are replanted fully. So that there are efforts being put in by company, and all these things are possible. Yeah. And on giving back the land I think the government will study it carefully. When company made the pledge of no deforestation, no peat, definitely there will be area in that land that may not be planted. But I think the important thing is, how do we work together as a cohesive whole, together with the government, to ensure that if this land is not meant to be open, and is this land meant to be conserved, then how do we do it effectively? And at the same time, the community can make a living out of their area. I think that's a key thing.
Thank you, Ibu Sian. We actually have 9 more minutes, and I'm supposed to give myself 5 minutes for concluding remarks, but I'm going to forego that because I think the discussion is more interesting than me concluding this discussion. So I would like to ask Pak Agus to ask the question.
Thank you very much, Pak Rizal. I'm really impressed and would like to congratulate whoever put together this panel. I think it's one of the best. Congratulations. The discussion has been very lively. What I'd like to put out and probably also ask to the panelists is the nature and the heart of landscape approach. Yeah? An approach that has the opportunity to approach the problems more integratedly, and also opens up the opportunity to have more collaboration and probably increase the level of trust among the stakeholders in the landscape. But it has been very, very difficult. And that is, I think, some of the problems would probably be that government offices have their silos. Yeah, for example, we have BRG, but BRG also have the areas that they work on. They cannot go beyond that. I think my question would be, is there any way and any magic, a trick that would be able to increase the trust among stakeholders and to allow the landscape approach, the jurisdictional approach, to work in the regions that need them. Thank you.
Pak Agus, if you don't mind, can you state your name and affiliation so everybody who doesn't know you?
Apologize. My name is Agus Sari, CEO of Belantara Foundation. It's a foundation that works on landscape approach to large-scale conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think I would like the panelists to answer the question, but also make a concluding remarks if there's a sentence or two that you would like to say at the end. But the question again is about how do we build trust if we look at the history. Please, Nazir.
Yes, to build the trust, I think it's very human if people remember the history, the broken promises or the disappointment which have happened in the past. And it's maybe, can I use the word inhuman? To just ask the people, forget about that history. No, we can't. It's always there. So what can build back the trust is the engagement and the results. And promises can no longer be used as the bait. Each party needs to look on the real action on the ground. When I was given something, and if that doesn't happen in a certain time, of course, I got mad. So I would like to see, it's very good that people say, I like to work with you, thank you. But it needs to be shown on the real action. I believe that is the only magic. And But I have full trust that can happen because we all learn from the mistakes that have happened, and we'll see how the mistake will lead to farther and farther away objectives. And it's so easy in some cases to not get farther away by realizing the actions that was agreed upon. So that's one. And my closing remarks, I believe this current government is very progressive. Our previous government also very progressive, but I say this government is more progressive than the previous one. The president put a very high call to the government official, to the ministers, and so far his call on red issues, on reduced deforestation, on preventions of fire by rewetting peatland and so on, has been kept well. So you see that Ibu Siti ran away with reviewing licenses of 1-point-something million hectares. The response from the president, good, keep doing it. It's not like, woo, you're running too fast, could you please slow down? No, it's giving all the encouragement. The same thing with me that I put out last week, 4-point-something million hectares of peatland need to be put in moratorium. President said, yeah, keep doing it. So it's very different. So we'll see, now we have big hope. And of course, the government will also not want to see the business lose and lose and lose. Economic need to be built, but we believe in a new economic balance. Let's work together to find that balance, that both the livelihood at the local level, the climate, the ecosystems, as well as economic development can happen. Maybe the rate of the profit margin will not as big as before, but it will be more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibu Nur, trust and closing remark.
Thank you, Pak Rizal. I think to build the trust, the first is don't forget the history, but forgive what happened in the history. And the second thing is, I have heard many times people say, let's work together. We cannot work by ourselves. We need to work together. This is the principle of landscape approach. So let's make our promise, or let's make what we say to be a reality. And more importantly, our president has always said that there is no vision of the ministers, there is no vision of others, the only vision is my vision. So ministers and all of Indonesian citizens need to work together to achieve what the president have the vision. And I believe our president have the good vision for the people. And one thing, the important things, be honest with our own vision so that we could work together.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pak Gubernur.
I would like to propose to Ibu, if your farmer in your place cannot send the children to go to school because the price of the CPO is very low, please move to South Sumatra. Because we already implemented the free education since 2002. Free education, 12 years. And last year we launching the free education until university. But I would like to invite all of us, all the audience of this forum. The Bond Challenge the Third will be held in Palembang next month on the 20th of July. The first day in the city, in Palembang, and the second day in the field, in the ground, on the grounds, on the damaged forest, on the damaged environments. So please come, free of charge, but you have to come with your own expense. And finally, I am maybe one of the very happiest men or woman in this forum, because the participants comes from 50 countries or more, and eager to we together to save the world, to save our environment for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. We actually have gone over time, but quickly from Ibu Mina and Pak Tony.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Governor. Actually, the Governor of West Kalimantan will come soon, so maybe you can talk about that. Sending the children who's not going to school to your place. Well, this is about trust, yeah. Like a family where member of the family being so abusive to member of the family as well. It needs time to build trust again that this can change, this abusive member of family can change. And to do that, we need reality, we need real change that we can see. We can see in front of our eyes the proof, the evidence. We need evidence, not only papers and talks. Evidence on the ground. I think that will be the prerequisites of any trust building in our case.
Thank you. Pak Tony, closing remark?
I think everybody has shared their view about building trust, and I couldn't agree more. Dialogue, continuous dialogue, fulfilling commitments and all that kind of things. But that's very important, and I think it can be done. It can be done because if we talk about restoration, if we talk about conservation, it's for our own, all of us will be benefiting from that. All of us, including the people, of course. And for companies, I think it's not only about a reputation building or giveaway, like to make people happy. It's an investment, which means that the company will gain back also benefit later from the good or a better ecosystem. Of course, like the trees can grow bigger and faster, and other benefit as well. So again, I would like to urge companies also to balance the production and conservation so that it can benefit all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to all the panelists. Thank you very much for coming.